there is none. Okay. I've designed this to be an interactive hour for us. I know there's a lot of people in the session. So what I'd like to ask you to do is keep yourself muted. It keeps, all that back noise and feedback down. But when we get into live discussion, go ahead and unmute, ask a question. We can also use the chat function because I do want this to be interactive. It's how I've designed it. I want to hear from all of you. I want to get your insights. That's what's really going to drive this entire series for you, rather than me just sitting here and pontificating for an hour a month. So as Harold said, there is a handout out in the chat room. I think he posted the link. Please grab that and pull it down. We're going to be working through this one today, and it also contains some of your homework. So yes, you are going to get homework every month. Again, I think that the worst thing that we do sometimes is we listen to a webinar or a podcast or whatever, and there's lots of good stuff being thrown at us, and then we don't ever necessarily put it to use. So I'm going to give you homework, and next month we're going to spend the first couple minutes of the session talking about that homework and how it worked for you or maybe didn't work for you, and why that might be. So we're going to jump right in here, and I want to start off with a quote that's actually at the top of your worksheet there. Earl Wilson once said, "Success is simply a matter of luck. Just ask any failure." And how often do we look at maybe someone else and their achievements and say, "Oh gosh, they were in the right place at the right time," or "Oh gosh, it's like the heavens open up for these people and blessings fall upon them." And we fall into almost a woe is me type of mentality, and we compare ourselves to these folks. And, depending on your outlook on life, I can tell you mine is that I've learned, and honestly, 5-10 years ago, I didn't feel this way. I was that pessimistic person who felt that, gosh, that person always in the right place at the right time. And how do they do that? How does someone do that? And now what I've realized is they've put themselves in the right position to be at the right place at the right time. And they've prepared themselves to step up, to be the leader or to be the influencer that they are. And so that's going to be my challenge for all of us over the coming months is, how do we get to be better? How can we get ourselves in the place where we need to be to have the most impact? And so that's where I believe the homework comes in. This will definitely be a series where the more you put in, the more you're going to get out of it. And so what I want you to do is on that, I want you to, before we go to the handout, I want you to think about this. Since today's topic is relationships, I want you to think for a moment, what would change in your life, whether business or personal, because everything we're going to talk about in this series has impacts on both sides of our life. What would change if you were able to develop better relationships? And maybe jot that down for yourself. What would happen? And while you're thinking about that, when I've talked with other HR people about this, I often hear, "Well, gosh, Ed, I'm in HR. I've got to be a great relationship person." And meanwhile, I've met plenty of people in HR amongst other disciplines as well that are not very good at building relationships. And so even if you feel you're a good relationship builder, what if you were even better? What would that mean for you? I know for me, when I first started thinking about it, and there was a point in my career where I was actually told I had very poor people skills. In fact, I was told I had horrible people skills and that I didn't know how to build relationships. And I don't know that was 100% accurate coming from the person it came from, but there was some truth to it. And I really had to take that advice to heart and say, okay, gosh, there's got to be some bit of accuracy here. And I need to own that and figure out what I have to do to change that perception, right? And so I'm not going to ask you to put any feedback here in the chat box because I think this is a deeply personal question. But I'm willing to bet some of you put down, well, maybe it gets me a promotion. Maybe it makes me a better contributor to my organization. Maybe it's a more solid personal relationship with kids or a significant other or friends or what have you. No matter what, relationships do drive us. You heard in my introduction, Harold mentioned that I do have certification through the John Maxwell Group. And one of the things John is very often quoted, and he works into almost every talk that he gives. And it's this concept of, if you want to go somewhere fast, go it alone, because we can always get somewhere fast working by ourselves. But if you want to go far, bring other people with you. And that for me really changed my view of what it means to build relationships. That, whenever you hear someone say, well, I'm a self-made person, stop and ask yourself if that's really true. Did they really get to where they are with no help from anybody else? That's almost impossible, right? Some of the best business minds and people that we might respect in the business world who have built empires didn't do it on their own. And so I want you to think about the fact that we've got to climb the mountain together. You want to go climb the Mount Everest, right? You don't just put your winter suit on and start climbing. I mean, this is a whole village it takes to climb Mount Everest. And so for me, I think that being a leader is very much the same thing, that we need to build that village around us. And the only way that we do that is through relationships. So let me ask you this, and please type into the chat box here. Why, after you've heard some of my thoughts and you've jotted down what could happen for you, why are relationships so important to your success? And whenever I use the term success, again, don't just think about it in terms of the business world, think about it in terms of your personal life as well. But why are relationships important to your success? Go ahead and throw some answers there in the chat box for me. Okay, enriches my life and my work. Thank you, Sandy. I like that one. Crystal says, let's see. Oh, here they come now. I got growth. They open up opportunities for new projects and professional growth. Our connection with people, learning opportunities. Absolutely true. All of it true. I'm hoping you guys can see the meeting chat. If not, make sure you open your screen up to see that chat. Just such cool stuff. Reduces stress. Yes. Love it. Other people control decisions that may influence us. Absolutely. So it's good to have that connection with those folks. Alternative viewpoints, collaboration. Wow. You guys are pretty smart, right? You get it. And so how often do we lose focus of those things, though? That's the real question that we have to ask ourselves. And we all do. I'm not here preaching from the pulpit. I'm challenged with some of the very things that we're going to talk about over the next couple months as well. So in your handout, take a look at you've got 3 blank spots there. It says success is. We've got 3 blanks there. So I believe that success is firstly knowing your purpose in life. Knowing your purpose. How do you define yourself in your life, right? For me, I love helping my clients with their problems. I mean, that defines me, who I am as a professional, but it doesn't define me as an individual. As an individual, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a softball coach, I'm a lot of other things. And so no matter how we define success, we have to know what our purpose is. And, I'm routinely blessed when I hear feedback about people whose lives I've impacted or touched in some way that maybe I didn't even know. And we all have that. I'm no different than all of you. You probably all have people you've touched. Maybe you don't know you've touched them, and maybe you do. But that's part of knowing who we are, okay? And not listening always to the outside noise about who we are or who we should be. So it's about being true to ourselves. The next part of success, and let me ask you what you think this one is. Success is blank to my maximum potential. Someone want to unmute and tell me what you think goes in that block? Okay, someone says the key to my success.
Working
to my maximum potential. Okay, part of it. Anybody else want to weigh in?
Living.
I like living to my maximum potential.
Is the roadmap.
Is the roadmap. So I like all of those things. There's a specific word I'm looking for, but they're all touching right around it, and that's growing. How do we grow into our maximum potential? Yes, by having a roadmap. Yes, by working hard at it. Absolutely, all the things you weighed in on all relate to how do we grow to our maximum potential. And I'd like to ask you, you guys do all the professional development stuff, just like I do, right? When you go to conferences or you select webinars to listen to or podcasts, ask yourself how often they are directly tied just to your job. It's something about, I don't know, ADA compliance or succession planning or COVID, for Pete's sake, whatever it happens to be, versus true professional development and personal development like we're doing today. I think, and we're all HR folks here, and I think it's one of our biggest challenges as a profession that we get so much opportunity to grow as HR professionals in our tactical knowledge that we forget there's a whole nother world out there of increasing our value to the world as professionals and people. And so I think it's awesome that we're going on this journey today, because that is growing to your maximum potential in a nutshell. Now, the last one is kind of easy. What do you do with seeds?
You plant them.
Plant them, absolutely. So it's success is sowing the seeds that benefit others. Sowing the seeds that benefit others. If you believe that you can only go far if you go with others, then we have to devote time to building the relationships and building their abilities up so that they can help us along the journey. Again, if you think about climbing Mount Everest, you got to have a guide. You've got to have equipment carriers. You've got to have first aid trained personnel. You've got to have the right food. You've got to have the right gear, all of those things. So it takes a lot of people with very specialized knowledge to make the trek up the mountain. And what we're doing in business is very, very similar. We've got different departments. We got finance, we got HR, we got maybe R&D, we got operations, whatever, all with specialized knowledge to get the company where it wants to go. And so as individuals, when I think about this, I think about how do we develop those around us so that they become more valuable to the organization, more valuable to us, and help us all on our journey. And that includes, by the way, again, your personal life. Maybe you volunteer on a board or in your faith tradition or in scouts or a sport or band, something along those lines. How are you developing those people and sowing the seeds that benefit them as well? I think it's a huge question to ask yourself, because we're going to learn here in a little bit that people don't care what we know. They don't care what we do. They really don't care about anything until they know that we care about them. So it all kind of starts with us, and I don't want to get ahead of myself. So if we stick with our worksheet here, excuse me, if you take a look, there was a study done by Stanford Research, and they talk to executives about, how do I hit business goals? How do I get things done? And you see the quote is that most chief executives say that the trait that's most needed is the ability to work with people. Now, we're in HR, we're like, well, duh, right? Yeah, we know this, but how often do we not maybe work on it ourselves? I hear, unfortunately, a lot with the CEOs that I deal with that HR is a stumbling block for them. And so we're going to look at how do we get beyond that that perception that we're the stick in the mud kind of thing, and truly not just be that strategic partner we're called to be, but be dragged into the boardroom to be part of those strategic discussions. I mean, that's really our calling as HR professionals. And that's where I believe the next several months are going to help us get to, is to add that value to our organizations. And so when we look at this split here between people knowledge and product knowledge, shouldn't surprise you, what came out of the Stanford research was that 87% of our time should be spent on developing our people knowledge. 87%, compared to only 13% worth of product knowledge. And that's why, and I'd like you to think about this for a moment, because I'm sure you all have a hand in the hiring process in your organizations. How valuable is it to bring in a good leader who can be taught your industry versus bringing in a bull in the china shop who's an expert in your industry? And what does that look like? And that's probably a daily battle you may fight with your operations team or other folks when you're hiring. But that research, is kind of amazing. When you think about how you spend your day, even here during COVID, right? If you're remote, you're still spending time with people, whether it's through email or Zooms or what have you. And so if we believe that the only way that we get things done is through people, then it would make sense that we need to develop not only ourselves, but the people around us to be good people. And that's the real key, I believe, to building relationships. And so if we think about why relationships are so important to business success, and even, again, success in our personal lives, I think it really comes down to relationships are the glue that holds stuff together, right? We've got different people in our lives for different reasons. So maybe you have a good friend who you enjoy going to happy hour with and de-stressing with. Maybe you have another good friend who's the one that when you need a good cry and a shoulder to listen, you go to that friend. In the workplace, you've got a business associate who, when you want to bounce ideas off of, you can get great feedback from them, right? So all of those different relationships help keep us together and keep us reasonably sane as HR people, okay? So that's what relationships do for us. They hold that glue together. And so here are the 5 things that I think make a really solid relationship with another individual. The first probably won't surprise you. It's respect. And I believe that, people say, oh, respect is earned. It's like trust, respect is earned. I disagree to a certain extent. I believe that if we want respect, we have to first give it, right? So if we're not willing to show respect to others, even if they haven't done anything to warrant it yet, then we can't build a relationship. The next thing is, the second thing is shared experiences. Now, folks will fight me on this. They'll say, well, Ed, that means that I can't have a relationship with someone who's not like me. No, come on, give me a break. We all have shared experiences, right? If you're talking about a relationship with someone at work, there's your shared experience. The culture of the workplace is your shared experience. In your family life, it's the fact that you're all stuck with each other as a family. There's your shared experience. So we have to be able to be, in order to be relational, we have to get to know someone and identify with them on an individual level. Even in the workplace, there has to be that individual level of connection. Once we've done those first 2, then the T word comes to play, trust. Okay, obviously it's essential. We don't have a lasting relationship if we don't have trust. And people will say to me, well, Ed, how do we, what do we do when we get burned? Okay. Well, the only way you can get burned is if you never trust at all. And so I look at that as if someone burns us by not reciprocating the trust, by not doing good with our trust, then we have to step back and ask ourselves, is this someone I need to have a relationship with? And is this someone I want to have a relationship with? I know I sound like a marriage counselor or something now, but we've got to pull that apart, right? And look at it even from that workplace scenario. Now, the next thing that comes after trust is reciprocity. And so this is where the relationship gets out of whack, where one of us is always doing all the giving. And we all know people like this, right? That it seems like every time they call, hey, how you doing? And the next 10 minutes, it's all about their problems and what you're going to do to help them with the problems. Okay. That's a one-sided thing. And so we're going to talk a little bit later about the whole servant leader thing that we've all heard about, but that's where reciprocity comes in. But we can only be a servant so long before we're just getting used. And here's the last one, and this is kind of a funny one, I think, when we think about it in terms of the workplace, but mutual enjoyment. Now, obviously, we all work with people that maybe we'd rather not hang out with. Maybe we don't even like them, okay? But, how can we take the relationship that we need to have with those kinds of folks and turn it into a positive experience? Is there a way we can do that? And I'm going to ask you to jump ahead on your worksheet just for a moment to number 7, because it's very applicable right now. To number 7 on your worksheet. It says, follow the blank principle. The fill in there is 101%, 101% principle. And essentially, you see it defined there. Just find the 1% that you can agree on and give all your effort to that 1%. I'm willing to bet that some of you have really, really good friends who you don't agree on everything with, but there's enough of a commonality there that you still enjoy each other's company, and that's why you're in the circle of friends, right? So can we find that in the workplace with someone that it seems like there's just nothing bringing us together? There's got to be at least 1% of something that we can use to build off of. And then just focus on that and forget about all the other noise. So much today, and you guys deal with this, especially based on social media, everything is about division, right? You're on that side, I'm on this side. Doesn't matter what the topic is, whether it's politics or religion or anything, right? Someone's on one side and someone's on the other side. We're so focused on that. When what we really ought to be focused on is where are the similarities and what can we agree on? And maybe the things we don't agree on are big, but maybe we don't have to worry about it. So I want to stop for a moment and do a quick check-in and see how you guys are doing. Any questions so far about that balance of people knowledge to product knowledge and building a relationship? Anything you want me to expand on? I see some heads shaking. I see a quiet chat room. I do like seeing smiling faces. There's only a handful of you on my screen, obviously, but it is nice that you're smiling back at me. So thank you for that. So at least I know I'm not putting anyone to sleep. Okay, so let's go back to your handout here.
Hey Ed, let
yes,
me
please.
ask you this if I can real
Please
quick.
do.
You've started with relationships as foundational. Do you view relationships then as the core foundational success factor for leadership above all others?
Yes. Yes, and that's why we start here. In 2 months, we're going to look inward at some things that we need to be doing to become better leaders for ourselves. But absolutely. So think about any leader. This is a great question. Thanks, Jonathan. Think about any leader, business, politics, faith, whatever, that you feel this person's a great leader. And then think about why you think they're a great leader. Because the reality is they have to have relationships to have gotten to where they are. Now, I want to be absolutely clear. Can we use relationships to manipulate people? Yep, happens all the time. Okay. Think about some of the worst leaders in history. Hitler, right? Had lots of followers. The guy was a leader. People say, oh, he's not a leader. Yes, he was. He was a leader. Now, did he lead out of fear and intimidation? Absolutely he did. But he had followers who were willing to carry out his distorted view of what the world should look like. Okay, so we can't. I was giving a talk the other day on this, and someone said, well, what about Charles Manson? Absolutely. He had followers, another twisted individual getting people to do really bad things. Okay, so he had relationships with his people, dysfunctional though they were. And so the key is for us building the right kind of relationships in order to get up that mountainside. Thank you. Did that help, Jonathan?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
Perfect. So if we think about it, if we look at people, I've got on your handout here, people can trace their successes and failures to the relationships in their lives. I think it's very true. And here's where you're going to get a little bit of a math lesson from me, okay? Some people add to our lives. They make our lives better, right? It's why we want to be with them, whether it's on the personal front or even at work, why we enjoy working with them. Maybe we've got a really great boss that we work for, okay? They're adding value to us. Some people do the opposite, right? They subtract from us. They suck the life out of us, okay? These are not healthy relationships. They may be relationships we have to have, but they're not healthy ones, right? And so how do we get that scale back in balance that one isn't just sucking the life out of the other? Keeping with the math theme, some people multiply our lives. So they make us so much better than we could ever be on our own. I'm hoping that you have a significant other in your life that applies, right? That these people being in your life, I know for me, certainly my kids also fall into that category. They make me be a better person because I want to be a good role model for them, right? And so kids coming along didn't just add to who I felt my success was. They really did multiply. And then what's the final mathematical equation we have not dealt with yet? Anybody want to weigh in? Division, right? Some people divide us. And these are probably the worst kinds of people. These are the people that you probably don't trust because they've burned you somewhere along the way. These are the folks who maybe work you for information, then use the information against you. They talk out of school about things. They spread rumors, those kinds of things. Now, again, what we have to ask ourselves is, do we have to have a relationship with this person in order to be a good leader or to be a success? That's where we really have to ask ourselves. The answer may be no. Who was it? I'm blanking. I think maybe it was Warren Buffett, but don't hold me to this. Said that you will be, in 5 years, the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So I see a couple of heads nodding. So there's some good truth to that, right? That if we are maintaining destructive relationships, that's going to hold us back, to be very clear. So though I say, to Jonathan's question, relationships are absolutely key, what we want to be clear on is that it's healthy relationships that are key to our success. So on that note, the first relationship rule is to love and accept who? Misty, I just saw you mouth it. Go ahead and unmute.
Yourself.
Yourself, absolutely. And here's, I know we're getting, I have a good business friend who says, okay, this is getting real hippy dippy now, okay? And I get it. But we're going to learn through this process that leadership starts with us. We have to lead ourselves really well before we can lead others well. And that's going to be a recurring theme over the coming months is how do we lead ourselves better? And how do we accept who we are right now? Right? How do we say, okay, I got flaws just like everybody else. I got things I'm still working on. I'm a diamond in the rough. But how can I say, okay, I'm cool with that. I'm on the journey just like everybody else is on the journey, and no one's expecting me to be perfect. Because if they are, then we go back and check that relationship and see where that falls. Because as you see the bullet point I gave you underneath, when you think about it, the only relationship you have for life that never goes away is the relationship you have with yourself. And so if we don't figure out how to get along with ourselves, we have a problem. There's your next little bullet point. The first person you learn to get along with is you. And that doesn't mean we always like ourselves or whatever, but we do have to accept ourselves. And so what I would say is this: once you feel comfortable with yourself, number 2 here under relationship rules is a bit of a debatable one, I think. And I want to hear your thoughts on this. Put energy into being likable. Now, that does not mean pleasing everyone. Can't do it, right? You all be old, gray, and wrinkled trying to please everybody. Not gonna happen. But it also doesn't mean that you're a failure if some people don't like you. So there's a difference, okay? It doesn't say be liked by everyone. It says put energy into being likable. Those are 2 very different things. I may not appreciate your the answer that you have to give me. I may not like the answer you have to give me in the workplace. But if you give it to me in a caring and professional manner, then I still like you for being honest. Okay? Number 3, what do you think we need to remember in relationships? This is so key. Remember their what?
Mutual.
Okay, relationships are mutual. Yes, CM, I'm not sure who you are because you're just in the chat room, but it says name. Remember their names, okay? People love to hear, it's the most magical thing in the world is the sound of our own name, right? Work hard at learning people's names. And I'll be the first to admit, I used to be really good at it, and I'm not admitting it's an age thing, but it's a little different now sometimes, right? Especially with masks on, right? You know, like people that you should see, and now you just see in their eyes and you got to wonder. But remember people's names and follow that up with number 4, which is focus on their interests. Find, again, if we're looking for that 1%, find something you can learn about them. If you want a great book on this topic, the author's name is Jack Mitchell, and he wrote a book called Hug Your People. Simple read. You could probably knock it out over the weekend sitting on your patio, okay? Easy read. But he talks so much. He's the owner of a series of high-end clothing stores up from Manhattan up into Connecticut. And he talks in the book about how he engages his people. And he knows the little things like, you know, he knows that Melody's the consummate soccer mom and she's always running her kids to soccer. So, you know, every now and then maybe she gets recognized with a gas card just to make life a little easier. And I don't know, Becky, he knows her kids in the band and they're always going to tournaments. And so maybe she gets a gift card to buy some outerwear because they sit through cold band competitions, right? This guy knows those little things about his people. And it makes him a better leader because he can connect with them. Doesn't mean he's got all these shared experiences, but he's put effort and energy into the relationship to learn the little things that are important about people. So people always ask me, how do I recognize people? How do I, like, just ask them what they want. This is not hard. Ask people what they want. I mean, he even outlines, I'm sorry, I'm giving the whole book away, but he even outlines, you know, like, well, there's one lady in my office, she likes daisies. So I get daisies for her on her birthday and they show up on her desk kind of thing, right? How do we personalize our interactions with folks? That's what's really going to drive the human connection that we need to be good leaders. Number 5 is something that I think we all struggle with sometimes. Request what of others?
Help.
Help. Absolutely. It's okay to ask for help. Now, that doesn't mean it's all one-sided, right? You don't want to keep going to the well on this, with someone asking that same person for help all of the time. But if you have a relationship with them, it's huge. And I'll give you a quick story. So before I got into consulting, I spent my career with UPS. And at the early stage of that career, I was in operations, and I was supervising and training drivers. And of course, UPS is union. And so you have very specific rules about what you can and can't do based on someone's seniority. And so this is in the days well before the electronic clipboards and everyone having cell phones and all that stuff, right? So if you wanted to get a hold of a driver, you usually called one of the businesses that you knew he or she would be getting to soon and say, hey, would you have the person call me? But there would always be times where some customer had more boxes to go out than they had told us, and so we would have to send more drivers out to make their pickups. And so I had a driver in my group who was one of our most senior drivers. Guy had been, around 30 years, hadn't had an accident in over 25. I mean, just an all-around good guy. And so we spent the day together on an annual ride I had to do with him. And I was like 23 at the time. And I said, look, Mel, I don't know what I'm supposed to teach you because you haven't had an accident since before I was born. So how about instead of me doing my checklist here and all that other garbage, I'll fill that out later. How about you tell me what you've done out here that has made you such a safe driver, safe employee, and his customers loved him. And so that's how we spent the day. I mean, again, the guy was old enough to be my dad, and we had a great day together. It really helped to build a relationship. Well, a couple weeks later, we had one of these customers that had a blowout day, and we needed to send drivers back out to pick them up. And so I see Mel come in, and again, now here's a guy who's very senior to the organization. And I went out and said, hey, Mel, can you do me a favor? Here's what's going on. Can I ask you to take an empty truck and go get this account? And he said, sure, I'll do that. Now, that seems like very basic, but keep in mind, being that senior level at the time of day he got in, within our union bargaining agreement, he would have had every right to say, no, Ed, I know there are other guys lower in seniority that are coming in soon. You ask one of them. But he didn't. He said he'd go do it for me. So he leaves. I get back into the office, and the manager says, what did you just do? I said, I just sent Mel out to make that pickup. He says, what is the matter with you? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. He says, he's one of our most senior guys. And I said, yeah, and we have a challenge with a customer. He's willing to meet it. I asked him politely. He went. And my manager was dumbfounded. And, I look at that now with 20 years of hindsight, and I'm saddened by that he was so blinded by the fact that this guy had all this seniority, and I should have never even asked him. I mean, God forbid, right? That he lost sight of the fact that I had a relationship with this driver. And now, am I going to go to that well every single day? No, that wouldn't be fair to him. But that one time we were in a bind, and I still credit it to the way I approached him the day on the vehicle, that helped him realize, look, I respect him. I respect his time, his knowledge, and I'm not going to ask him all the time, but we were in a bind, and he was willing to help out. And so it's not a bad thing to help, or, to ask for help. Now, if we're going to ask for help, number 6 is critical. We have to add value to others. Have to add value. And when I think about that, what I think about that meaning is, if you look on I don't know if it's on your next page or not, is truly value them first. So we can't add value to them if we don't value them as a person, because then it becomes a using situation. We're just using the person if we don't value them, right? What do we have to do for ourselves? What do we have to make ourselves in order to add value to those around us? So we have to value people, and then we have to make ourselves what?
Vulnerable.
Okay, vulnerable. I like that one.
Available.
Available is another good one.
Valuable.
Thank you. Valuable is the one I'm actually looking for, though. Those others are perfect, right? So by continuing to develop yourself and your ability to then go and develop others, right? It's the waterfall going downhill. All of that good stuff continues to flow. I don't believe that only the poop flows downhill. I think the good stuff flows downhill too, right? And so as we invest in ourselves, we're able to be there more for other people. And so making ourselves more valuable is also key. The last thing we have to do to add value to people, and we've kind of talked about, but it's know and relate to the things they value. Now, again, I want to be clear. This doesn't mean that we value what they value. It just means that we know what they value and we can relate to it. Again, I think if you look at the relationships in your life, especially if you get outside of your immediate friend network, or certainly outside of your family network, you probably have people that you associate with that may have some different, I hate to say different values, but maybe they have different priorities. Okay, and you may not agree with their priorities because they wouldn't work for you, but that'd be okay. You still have a relationship with them. And so as long as we can relate to why those things are important to them, and we know that, then we can add value to them. We can help them to get to where they want to go. So we talked about the 101% principle. The last couple things here. I want you to love people more than opinions. I don't care what other people's opinion of that person is. Opinions are like belly buttons. Everybody's got one, right? And so it doesn't matter whether or not other people like this person, think they're a great employee or whatever. It's, can we value that person for what they bring to the table more than the opinions that others have about them? Sometimes I think that when we are in our HR mode, and maybe we're talking about discipline with a manager, the manager has an opinion on why the person should be fired or disciplined or whatever. So they have that opinion. Are we focusing on the individual? Are we focusing on the acts of the person? Can we separate those things out? Are we treating that person with dignity, with respect, because we value them as an individual, even though we don't have to value their actions, right? It's almost like, you hear that with your kids. You can still love your kids, but not like an action that they've done, and therefore they need to be punished for that, okay? It's pretty much the same with adults. Can we still love and care about that person while not liking maybe something that they've done? And that's critical, I believe, to maintaining a relationship, because people are going to let us down, right? It's going to happen. So can we still maintain that? Now, number 9 is super duper easy here. What rule have we been taught to follow since we were little kids?
Treat others as you want to be treated.
Which is called the
Golden.
golden rule. Yeah, right. And yeah, we can get into semantics about, well, treat others as they want to be treated, not as you want to be treated. Come on, okay, whatever. We know what it's talking about, right? Take care of people. And we do get lost on this sometimes, and it's a shame. But what we can do with all of this here at number 10 is find resources to help you grow your skill set. You've done it by tapping into our time together over the next several months. Okay, because we're not, even though today is all about relationships, it's going to be a building thing as we go through. Next month, we're going to talk about equipping, but we can't equip until we relate. So this is all going to build on itself. Now, what I've given you, some of your homework, we're not done yet, but I want to share with you the homework that you're going to do. So you have a relationships inventory on the handout there. I'm going to ask you to let today process for a little bit. Give it at least the weekend to kind of sink in, reflect on some of the things that we talked about, and then be honest with yourself on this inventory. I'm not asking you to turn it in. I'm not grading it. You're not going to share it with the group. This is for your eyes only. Okay? But we are going to talk about this at the beginning of next month's session about what were your ahas. And don't be too hard on yourself. You know, if you think you're doing something well, give yourself a doggone 5 for Pete's sake and celebrate it. Okay? But now I do want to talk. I want to open up the lines here for the last couple of minutes. I want to talk about the first 2 questions at the end of your worksheet. So Teddy Roosevelt says the most important single ingredient to the formula of success is knowing how to get along with people. What have you seen in your experience that has proven that to be true? Those who don't get along with people often stall in their careers. It's very true. You know, the pressing ahead and worrying about nothing but results is only going to get you so far. Anyone else? Either in the chat box or feel free to unmute. Okay, people don't leave jobs, they leave bad managers. Absolutely, which holds that manager back from being all they can be. You know, when I see a manager who's got a lot of turnover, I see a manager who's got problems. Extraordinarily high turnover because of leaders who cannot maintain relationships. Thanks, Kristen. Motivating people more than getting oh, I'm sorry, here's a question. Is motivating people more important than getting along with them? Jonathan, great question. So, yes. And the only reason I hesitate with that is I think we have to try to get along with people, right? But ultimately, I remember hearing this quote. I'm not advocating this, but I remember hearing a quote from a manager one time saying, "If you want a friend, buy a puppy." You know, now that's pretty harsh in my mind. I felt it was harsh when I heard it said. But again, as I've had 20 years to process that out, I realized what he was trying to say was, look, yes, we have to build relationships, and yes, if we can be friends, that's great. But ultimately, we are here to solve problems for our customers, whether that's through the service or the products that we provide to them. And so, yeah, Jonathan, I think there is something to be said for, okay, you may not like me, I may not like you, and we may have tried, and there's just something going on there that's just not working, okay? But if I can motivate you around the company's goals and the company's vision, and you buy into that, I will take that. So I hate to rank them, but I will take that. And I saw it. I mean, again, another UPS example. I mean, there was a driver. He was just, how do I be polite? He was hard-nosed. Okay. I mean, he didn't get along with management. He was very much pro-union and hate management and don't talk to me, I'm not on the clock yet. It was horrible. And one day I had to go out on the road with him, and I was just dreading this 9 hours, right? Because I'm thinking, this is going to be miserable. Guys, I could not believe this. His customers loved him. He was a completely different person out on the road, joking around, smiling. I'm like, okay, who is this dude? Because I've never seen this guy before, right? I'll take it. I'll take all the abuse he wants to dish out at me as his supervisor if he's going to be loved by the customers. So, yeah, I think that there is something to that, Jonathan, but I still worked hard to try and have a relationship with that guy. I never gave up on him. Rita says, if, capital letters, if you've had good relationships and it makes issues and challenges that arise in the workplace or in life easier to work out. Absolutely it does. And so that's why we started off this series with relationships, to get us thinking about where we are. So Yeah, I mean, I think that when we think about Roosevelt's comment, I would agree. If we don't know how to get along with people, we're going to really struggle to be a good leader, because we're going to be that leader sitting up in the ivory tower, and that person doesn't last very long up there because they don't inspire a vision and a commitment. Now, I want you to answer this next one before we hop off here. Number 2. How have your relationships affected your level of success? So how's it helped you? Or maybe if someone feels really open, how has it negatively affected? Maybe you haven't had a good relationship and that's impacted your success. Okay, positive relationships have helped me with the transition from manager to leader. Okay. Yep. As we go from directly, truly managing people and taking on that next level, more opportunity for growth. Consulting practice is almost 100% based upon relationships. Yes, those of us that are in a service environment, it's nothing but being able to get along with clients and prospects, and absolutely, relationships are everything.
From having a positive relationship with a prior employer helped me build trust with my new employer because they had a relationship.
Right. So
Connections.
Depending on where you live,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, depending on where you live, there's no 6 degrees of separation. And so everybody knows everybody. And so, yeah, you start burning bridges, you're going to be in trouble, right? If you can't repair those bridges. And I liken the analogy to like a wall. So think about when you deal with someone and it doesn't go well. Just that one interaction doesn't go well. And think about placing a brick between you and that person. Now, the next time something goes well and you can take the brick away. But what happens if there's too many negatives, right? The bricks add up and all of a sudden there's a wall there and now communication breaks down. There's no more relationship. And so think about your interactions in that way. At least that's what I do. And sometimes after a particularly in-depth interaction with someone, I like to think about that. Okay, did I just put a brick up, or did I put multiple bricks up if it was bad enough, right? That's really, I'm going to have to leap over the next time I got to interact with this person. And the quicker we can get those bricks down before the mortar dries, the better off we are. April says, good relationships have provided for opportunities to continue to learn despite no longer working with them. Interesting. Positive relationships helped our organization and employee base grow largely through referrals. Excellent. Excellent. And if you're in the service industry and people are referring you, whether that's other customers, other professionals, take care of those folks, right? Don't let that referral relationship be one of the relationships that gets all out of whack. Do something for those folks. Maybe it's, if you can offer them a discount, great. Send them a gift basket, even just a simple little handwritten thank you card. How cool is it when you get one of those today, right? Email thank you's nice, but how cool is it? Even with my chicken scratching, I like to send out a little thank you card periodically to folks with a little something in it or whatever for helping me out. Melody says, building a network of people to reach out for help and advice. Excellent. That's really, in my mind, why social media should exist, right? The things like LinkedIn, and that is, how do we build that network up to really be there to help other people? Right before I got on with you guys, I was on with a gentleman who's currently searching for work. I'm not a headhunter, but we have a mutual connection. This guy asked if I'd talk to him and help him out. Sure, why not? Nothing in it for me except for the fact I got to know some dude, right? And we spent a half hour talking, and who knows? Maybe he's, going to land somewhere that needs my help. Maybe he's going to remember that I helped him out and something good will come. You never know, right? It sounds terribly selfish, and I don't mean it to sound that way, but that's why we build relationships, for good things to happen. So we are right up at 2 o'clock. So here is your homework for next month. There are 2 more questions to answer on our questionnaire here, and I did this intentionally. Number 3 is write out your 3 best qualities. So be honest with yourself. Don't say, I ain't got none. Yes, you do. You have good qualities. Be honest with yourself, okay? And then figure out how you can incorporate those into your relationships. What are the best parts about who you are and how can you work those into your relationships, okay? And then number 4 talks about that relationship inventory, okay? Digest today, take the inventory, then digest that for a little bit, and then come back to number 4 and think about, okay, how can I improve on the lower scores? What do I have to do to keep the high scores high? So often we focus on our weaknesses that we forget if we don't keep using our strengths, they will get weak. So keep working on your strengths too. So you've got the relationship inventory and you've got questions 3 and 4 to answer for next time. I'm not going to ask you to share anything you don't want to, but I do want to spend the first 5 or 7 minutes of next time talking about our homework before we jump into equipping. And we'll follow this same model. We'll have an open discussion. I will have a worksheet for you that'll be posted in the chat room the day of the event, so you can pull that down. Harold, can I ask you, I think Harold's still in the room.
I am.
Thank you. Would you please put my email contact in there? I am willing to answer questions for you guys as we're going through this process. No obligation, no cost, none of that stuff. Just, you need help with something, shoot me an email. If we need to hop on the phone, even willing to do that, so that I can help you along with this process and it's not just a once a month kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that, Ed. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions I can help you with before I release you for your weekends?
Ed, let me say thank you very much. This was a great session. I'm sure we're going to have a follow-up email for everyone. We'll attach the document in case for some reason someone didn't have the opportunity to grab the document that you've been working on here today. I'll also commit to you, provide you Ed's email address as well, so you have his contact information. But thank you all so much for attending. I hope you found it valuable. I certainly did, as I lurked in the background here and listened to all your great comments. And want you all have an excellent weekend, and we'll see you all again real soon. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Enjoy,
you.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.